Is NHL Sense Arena worth the cost? You know what? Let's talk about that. Let's be honest, hockey is not cheap. An extra ice time can cost over $150 an hour, and hockey camps cost hundreds. With NHL Sense Arena, you're getting access to hundreds of drills and training plans starting at $33 a month, where you can practice on a schedule that works for you. And new content is constantly added to the game. From new arenas to practice in, weekly challenges with their season mode, and new drills like the recently released USA Hockey training plans. This is such a great training tool for any hockey player or goalie. While hockey is definitely expensive, this is just over $1 a day. So what are you waiting for? Level up your off-ice hockey training with NHL Sense Arena.
And remember, gang, for listeners of Our Kids Play Hockey programming, we're offering $50 off an annual plan. Just head over to hockey.sensearena.com and use the code HockeyNeverStops at checkout. Again, that's hockey.sensearena.com. Use our code HockeyNeverStops at checkout and take your child's off-ice training to a new reality with NHL Sense Arena 25. Now, let's get you into this episode on the Our Kids Play Hockey Network. Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another episode of Our Kids Play Goalie. I'm Lee Elias with Mike Vanelli. We've got a special guest today. He played for the New York Rangers. He's a goaltending consultant and is a current studio analyst for MSG Networks in New York. He's also the president and chief executive officer for Clear Sight Analytics, which we'll call CSA on the show today just to keep it going. They're also changing the game with cutting-edge team and player-based performance data built around the quality of scoring chances, thus proving that Our Kids Play Goalie is a show for everyone and not just goaltenders. So everyone listen up today. You're going to like this one. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Steve Valiquette to the show today. Steve, welcome to Our Kids Play Goalie.
Thank you very much, Lee. Mike, great to see you guys, and I'm happy to get started.
Well, we're happy to have you. I did that a little bit of Price is Right today, but come on down. Yeah, you're the next contestant on Our Kids Play Goalie. Steve, listen, we're going to be talking a lot today about how analytics impact the game today. So I want to jump right into stats with you. So the opening question is, how has statistical analysis changed the game, and how have you seen it evolve over the years?
5 years ago, there were 40% fewer east to west passes in the game. Wow. And yeah, that's when you see scoring starting to trend in ways that analytics have influenced the way players play. That would be the key stat. 40% more east to west scoring chances in the NHL today than 5 years ago. There are many more points, but I think that one's key because it really does talk to and speak to the importance of movement and how much goalies need to spend, how much time they need to spend working on their skating every day.
I think, real quickly, I know when I had gone to one of your CSA presentations that did probably a little bit before the pandemic, and it was unbelievable. It was like in person, a lot of energy, great people there. I think one of the main stats that I took from it, from a coach, was the whole Royal Road theory, and just the articulation of, and I use that every day with my little guys, like every kid I work with, because it's a very understandable piece of this area of the ice where if it could pass from one place to the other, their goal scoring can go up, or at least goal opportunities, right? So can you just expand on that from a goaltender's perspective, how now the goalie game's changing in the crease because of the awareness of the offense?
Well, wait, what's the Royal Road? You can't drop something like that. And
I'll help you there. Anyway. You know what, guys? It was 12 years ago that I was working for the New York Islanders, and the data that I was receiving on the goalies, I knew it needed an upgrade. So there was an opportunity there for me to start a company, and 2 years later, in 2014, we started tracking scoring chances. There are typically, during an 82-game NHL hockey season for 32 teams now, 75,000 shots that get taken during the NHL season. Wow. We have 34 points of data for every shot that either hits the net or the post. So the data that we're bringing in, it's an enormous amount, and we have 10 NHL client teams that work with us, gambling firms that subscribe to us, NHL players that work with us on private contracts. And I think you're going to find this interesting because I had a Zoom conversation with one of, I can't name the players, but one of my NHL clients. It's a shooter. And we were talking about the Royal Road. The Royal Road started with a concept that I believed was necessary to track as a very important event. It's an imaginary line that starts in the middle of the net and it goes all the way to the top of the circles. It stops there. Imagine it's a marker. And anytime that marker has an eraser that goes through the line, whether the carry happens with a player carrying the puck across that imaginary line or a pass that goes across that imaginary line, you're asking the goaltender for the first time to really open up his legs. Because when the puck stays on one side of the ice, the goalie never really physically has to open up. Goalies should allow the play to come to them. Defenses are set up in ways to protect that imaginary line because they have to realize the puck will end up in the net once every 3 times that happens during a game.
Wow.
So I'm talking to this NHL player yesterday, and he had a lot of success 2 years ago on breakaways. He didn't have any success last year on breakaways. We watched his 12 breakaways from last season versus his 14 breakaways from 2 seasons ago. He was crossing that imaginary line on his breakaways and having a ton of success. And last year scored once, only once, and didn't cross that imaginary line at all. For some reason, he got it in his head that he was going to stay on one side of the ice and really do the goalie a favor, because now the goaltender is, in theory, protecting half of 6x4. And I'm explaining to this player that if you're in a shootout, and that's why Artemi Panarin has a lot of success in shootouts, because he crosses the Royal Road twice, whereas in gameplay last season, he went 0 for 13 on breakaways because he didn't cross the imaginary line in game situation when somebody's back checking hard on him. So that's the best way to get an idea of how important it is. I think it's really important for defensemen, coaches that are coaching defensemen, to make the job easier on the goaltender by understanding that line really matters. The way that I explain it to defensemen to help my goalie is that I like them to imagine that's their net. Visualize that's your net. If it goes through your net, goes into your net, it will end up in your goalie's net. So that's the way I kind of break it down for young kids.
Mike, we just got a show worth of gold right there. So thank you, Steve.
It's amazing because it's such a simple concept for the kids to understand, because that road is there, and you can create a lot of games in practice that replicate the Royal Road, right? You can replicate a lot of east to west movement of the puck. And I think, one of the things that we need to do better as coaches, and Steve, maybe you could talk a little bit about, the practice planning and how you can help non-goalie coaches coach goalies, is that we can't just have all our drills come from out of the corner, get a pass, and a straight line on net and just rip the puck on the goalie. Now, every goalie probably likes that. Like, okay, I just have to move a foot out and the puck hits me. Right. So I think just about, what can we do as coaches to help our goaltenders not put them in a situation where they're getting hurt or really beating them up in practice, but what can we do in our practices to allow them to understand and actually work on that skill of moving across the net and tracking pucks, because now we're getting smarter at moving the puck across the Royal Road.
So for folks, I think they need to know first that let's just remove the word analytics. Look, if I could rebrand and rename our company, I would change it from ClearSight Analytics to ClearSight Hockey. And the reason why I would do that is because all that we're doing during a game is what anybody can do. We're just capturing the events in the game. We have labeled them. We have a strict criteria for them. I have 12 trackers tracking every game in the NHL. Every night we do it live. We're not using AI. AI does not work. That's another conversation. We have 2 guys that are quality controlling. And sometimes it even comes to me, Valley, we need a call on this shot. This is a bizarre one. It's a broken play, goes across the Royal Road. The 1 second barrier is eclipsed. Sometimes it gets wacky. My point is that how does any coach know how much time they should spend on 2-on-1s, 3-on-2s, breakaways, clear view shots? How would you know unless you track your games? 8-year-old hockey is different than 18-year-old hockey. But I can tell you one thing. We have done full seasons in the NCAA with the Quinnipiac Bobcats, USHL with the Chicago Steel, U16 with the North Jersey Avalanche, the NHL, the American Hockey League. You know what's funny? Hockey's hockey. At all of those levels I just named, 1 breakaway goes in every 3 times. Screened deflection goes in 1 every 3 times. you're going to laugh when you see the data come over and you're just like, oh my God, hockey's hockey. I get it. The only way that it wouldn't be that way in the NCAA is if I put Henrik Lundqvist in the net at Quinnipiac, because nobody would score on the breakaway. So 1 out of 3 wouldn't work. I'll give you an example of the way I use it in practice. I have my goalie practices. I don't know if you guys know how much time I'm on the ice, but 20 hours a week all summer long. So I'm on the ice as much as I'm in the broadcast studio or in my office in sales. I love the game, and the reason why I got into this is because I love player development. It happened to me, so I have a strong belief in we can improve. So I'm on the ice a few years ago with a local goalie from Greenwich. His name is Strauss Mann. He's playing for the Brunswick Prep School Hockey Club. He went through Mid-Fairfield. So these are programs that people are listening to that are familiar with. Strauss goes on to play for the U.S. Olympic team. He played against Canada, had a big win a couple of years ago when the NHL players didn't go. He is now playing in the DEL in Germany. He's been under contract with San Jose, with the Montreal Canadiens. He's had a long track record. The reason why I tell you all this is because when he was a sophomore, he couldn't get on the ice at Brunswick. When he was a junior, got a few games, but really took over his senior year. He was a really intelligent player that watched a lot of hockey. That's important to me. If you're going to be a hockey player, you got to watch a lot of hockey because that's how you improve. You improve by watching. So one day we're on the ice, we're doing a drill, and the player is coming out of the corner. I'm playing defense, but it's like fake defense, and I give the puck away. And that's a way that I like to try and make the drill feel game-like. I make it feel like the goaltender is engaged and he gets into mental state of flow because it's something that he believes happens a lot in games. So we're doing this exercise, and Strauss says to me, Valley, I love your drill. I just don't think it happens often enough for us to be practicing it. You know, my back comes up because I'm a coach, and this is early 2014 before I'd really tracked a full season. And I was like, you cocky, you know, I didn't like it. I didn't like the fact he was calling out my drill. There was lots of glitter in that drill. It looked good. It was fancy. I liked it. If you were a parent and you're watching this drill, you're like, oh, Steve's drills are great. But go back to what he said. I don't feel like this happens a lot. Listen to your athletes. I marked that one down at the end of the year. I looked at exactly the skating sequence from out of the corner that I was replicating in this practice drill. He was right. Never happened. Never happened. Didn't happen often enough for us to be working on it. That's for sure. The point is at your level right now, for anybody interested in getting into hockey, a great first practice into that is chart your scoring chances. Chart your scoring chances. Location. Was there a screen or not? Was the puck deflected? Was there pre-shot movement? Did the puck go across the Royal Road? I just told you it goes from the middle of the net all the way to the top of the circle. It's easy. You just come up with your own framework, and then you can say to your coaching staff, hey, look, we've got to work on 2-on-1s. We've given up 12 in our last 3 games, and they're going in 1 every 3 times. You know, that to me is hockey information. Forget about the math behind it. We don't have to get into expected goals and these things. Like, that's for the NHL guys. They can do that. But this is hockey information.
Yeah, I think one of the things you say too is that, you know, and just in describing the way you design your practices for your goaltenders to be game-like, that we do this all the time as coaches, and we take away the only time we have. We're so limited in time we have with the kids at the youth level that we're doing a lot of things that might look good. Like the parents might say, oh, that looks okay. Looks like they're really working hard. But really, is it, you know, transferable to a game? I see it every day. One of my biggest pet peeves now is watching hours and hours and hours of coaches work on regroup drills, you know, D to D, up to the winger, back, D to D, up to the winger. And I haven't seen a game all year where a kid got stuck on the red line, moved the puck back to the D to D, and up the ice. It just doesn't happen. So now, again, that might be the level of players I'm watching. But so to your point, cater to what actually happens in the game. So if you're getting the puck and you got to rip the puck in, you know, opposite side on the D and make those D turn and chase pucks because you don't know how to regroup because you don't do it, then be really good at that. Like, learn that skill.
Well, Mike, 85% of the game, this is proven, is spent on the boards. The puck is on the boards. Right. The players need to know how to get the puck off the wall and get it to the net in the offensive zone.
Right. And we don't do that, right? We don't do those battle drills.
That's what gets me frustrated. I'm like, guys, you're working in the middle of the ice. Let's go. Come on. You're there 15% of the time. Knock it off.
So I like to get creative with our teams. Like I'm blessed this year. I've got a just great coaching staff on a squirt team, 10U team, right? And one of the things that I love about them is there's a lot of planning that goes into practice for every player.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big believer, and I want to get your take on this, Steve, if this is a data-driven type of thought process, because I think at the younger levels, a lot of coaches, well, we don't have analytics, we don't have stats. And look, you may not, but you can watch the game and pick up on things. So we'll get to our meeting each week. And again, this is a 10U team, and it'll be like, okay, these are the 10 things I think we need to work on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, we're not going to work on all 10 things in one practice. So throw that out. So what are the top 3 priorities? And what is the data, or what are we seeing that's making those the top priorities? And one of them that we're seeing is, okay, our F3 is not high, all right? And that our goaltender is having issues in certain odd man rush situations. So in analyzing what we see at the games, we prioritized what we want to work on. We've created now drills that work on both of the things I just talked about, right? So now the goaltender is engaged, the defense is engaged, and the forwards are engaged in a drill that are going to help us. Now, Mike, to your point, there's got to be a why for these kids behind the drill. So what we did was we brought out a bunch of hula hoops, and we put them on our sticks, and we forced the kids into certain situations that replicated the game. Because if you don't do that, they're just going to come right down the middle, or they're going to take advantage of that. So it was fun because the hula hoops were out there. Every player was engaged. It was based on, we'll just say data, right? Things that we saw. And we didn't go, well, we're getting one breakaway a game. Our goalie needs to work on breakaways 100 times. No, we worked on the things that we're seeing. So I think, Steve, the question again to you, at a youth level, whether it's in a notebook or not, pay attention to what's happening, right? What's happening over and over and over again, and then find creative ways to work on that. And also make sure to break it down. So if you're not getting the puck across the Royal Road, you might need to break it down to, hey, we're not good at passing, and we need to work on passing, right?
Well, so you just said it, right, Lee? Lee, the first 15 minutes of my practice, I've got an hour with a goalie. It's fundamentals, strictly fundamentals. And if that goalie is not a pro, then guess what? It's more like 30 minutes of fundamentals.
Right.
And then 15 minutes, for now, minutes 30 through 45, you're kind of working him through 3 drills, not 30.
Right.
3 specific drills, newer stuff that you feel they're ready for. And then in the final 15, you take everything you built fundamentally and those new soft skills that you've learned, and you put that into an intensive game.
Right.
Reason why this is the most important part of your practice, number one, you've built there, so you've made progress. Your athletes are ready for it. You have to now train the mental part of the game. We always talk about how important it is to be mentally tough. The game's 99% mental. Oh yeah, who's working on it? I can tell you how you work on it, though. You have to put players in a position that they are competing with posture, engagement, following rebounds, chasing down pucks. The goaltender knows the next shot is imminent. Everything feels like a game. And you know what happens? Everybody turns on. They get into the zone. They get into flow state. And now we're competing. And on that competition, there has to be an outcome. You have to have something at stake or nobody gets engaged. What I came up with, I had 2 years in Russia. So one of the things that we used as a punishment, but I understood their mode of operation was really just to get engagement. So when we do a competition, I like to create something on the ice that's going to be a best 4 out of 7. And it might be a drill with 4 different shots, but those are the ones that we've worked up to in the practice. So we're now putting it into game environment. And on those 4 shots, I'll say something like, you've got to score 1 goal on these 4. If the goalie's ready for it, meaning, age-wise appropriate, we'll play the rebounds. If he's not, we want to get that soft skill first, no rebounds, but he graduates by beating them for the next practice into using rebounds. There's always ways to progressively make things harder. The most important thing I can tell you guys is that the data that I know about, for instance, breakaways go in 1 every 3 times. A Royal Road pass goes in 1 every 3 times. Like I said, a screen deflection goes in 1 every 3 times. That might be a great competition if I've got an AHL goalie on the ice with me and 2 AHL shooters. They'll come off the rush, make a pass across the ice, 1-timer. Puck goes in the corner, continuous on the puck. Other guy gets the dot. Player in the corner collects the puck, fires it across the ice. That's a second Royal Road play. Then they both come to the net. I throw a puck in from the blue line with my defenseman. Now we've got a screen deflection. There should be 1 goal every 3 shots, right? So that's I know those are 3 grade A chances that we just talked about, But you know what you wouldn't believe? You can ask any of the guys that skates with me. Every game goes 7. That's when you know you've nailed it. If it goes to last shot, that's when you know your skill within the framework of the forwards you have on the ice, the D that are sifting the pucks in, the goalie that's engaged. If they can go to game 7, think about how valuable that is mentally.
Right.
They're getting used to playing under conditions. And what we do at the end is losers roll over twice. So there's something at stake. That's what I got from Russia. We did it in Russia. It's we call it a sugar cookie. You just roll over in the snow. And it's like, nobody wants to roll over. There's something at stake. Guys are pumped. And that's why I love what I do, because for 5 hours a day, I'm back in the room. I'm on the ice, and you wouldn't believe some of the saves, some of the goals, and it's high level, and I just love it. It's electric. And that's why so many goalies have gone Division I out of the Bridgeport Wonderland of Ice. That it wasn't like that before I started. We every year got guys committing. We just had another one for Army, University of Michigan. It's nonstop. Cornell. So, it gets me excited because it really makes me feel like I'm going through the experience again. What happened to me?
Right. No, you're having an impact too. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, so the two things you're hitting on, I think, are some things we talk about all the time, in our goaltending conversations. Well, in any practice, but create competition. Yeah. Create that desire to, just go out there and battle, and because that's not a bad thing. I think a lot of times people misread that competition and a winner and a loser in a drill or a practice could be a negative thing.
Oh, Mike, it has to be. Mike, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second because this is what it's like too. I'm on the ice with a goalie this summer, right? And he says to me after he loses, he's like, "Damn, I was thinking about the score." Doesn't that happen in a game?
Yeah,
he's a great kid. And I was like, "Nate, I know where you're going here." And listen, I just came off the pickleball court. One thing I have a hard time with pickleball is keeping score, because I'm used to playing goalie where I never look at the score clock. Never look at the clock. I don't want to know the score. I play the same way every minute of every game. And that's the way I played. There were times from youth all the way into pro where I'd come out of the game like periods 2, like, I got to look what time, I don't even know if we're up at 1 or 2, but that's a good sign.
Yeah.
And you learn through the practice experience as an athlete. All right, where did my attention wane a little bit? You can assess that after your practice. Why? Because the goalie was turned on. The shooters were turned on. Everybody was mentally engaged, and you created an environment as a coach. That's your only job. Create a game environment. If you're not doing that, you really shouldn't be in coaching.
You know what, man? I love that you said that. And I think that it's important to note that can be created at every level, right?
Has
to be created. Because I think that there are coaches out there, and God bless all the coaches that are volunteers. I'm not poo-pooing on that at all.
No, but if you're not meant to be a coach, don't coach.
Right. Hey, look, I like that style. I know Mike does too, but it's the creativity in it, in the sense of like, look, there's no shortage of finding drills nowadays, right? But it's about finding the right things for your team and looking at it practice to practice and making sure that you're creating those game environments like you're talking about, Steve. I also want to bring up too, I love that you're talking about mental fitness and mental health and mental competitiveness, because that's a big thing that we do on this show. And that you need to learn how to build those in, or probably more important, recognize those little aspects of the game as well. We talk about the infinite game, and like you said, not worrying about the score, that the infinite game goes beyond that. It's about getting excellence in every second of everything that you're doing. Yeah. And when you culminate that, you're going to get excellence. But, and this is the thing I think people miss, it takes practice, a lot of practice to do that. Whenever you don't just get it, right? It doesn't just turn on one day. When you achieve it a little bit, you have to maintain it. If you get out of practice, it'll stop. It's just like anything else in the game. And we need to be spending more time on that as a community.
The problem is a lot of the athletes don't know that they're supposed to be paying attention to it.
Right.
Totally
agree with you.
If you can't get them there, then they can't start to assess. And that's the important thing. It has to be the spoken word in the room.
Right.
It has to be out there. Guys, I want you to know, you're not out there just to get a physical workout. We're not here for a cardio program. I know that's going to be a piece. There's going to be a physical piece. There's going to be a technical piece, but there must be a mental piece here.
Right.
And you have to talk about it, because the athlete, when they're more aware, their intentions, they change. They become more intent on everything they do, right? Like, look, you guys are familiar with Patrick Sharp. He shot for me for a very long time. I got a lot of great NHL guys that come through. But I remember one day, in specifically, we're at the Wonderland of Ice, and the rebound comes out, and his posture comes up out of his skates, and then he comes back down, and he misses the net. And I was like, hey, Sharpie, listen, man, you've got to keep your posture there. I actually came up with this rule. You guys will laugh about this one. I call it a rebound posture violation. So if the guy comes out of posture and then decides to get back into posture and start playing again, I just blow the whistle. I was like, no, your rebound's done. That's a dead play because you didn't stay engaged. You mentally got to get sharper out here. And I'm all over my shooters. I drive the shooters hard because the harder I drive them, the better the goalie becomes. It's a part of his development. And that's why if you have drills in your practice where the goalie will turn off mentally and just say, well, this will never happen in a game and not try, guess what you get? You get a shooter trying to score on a goalie that's not engaged and doesn't care. And then the shooters stop caring. Guess what? Just get off the ice. You might as well, you're just wasting everybody's time. Now back to Patrick Sharp. He said to me, he goes on the ice, he's like, no, man, I didn't come out of posture. And I was like, oh, yeah, you did. And I pointed to the GoPro that I had hanging behind the glass. Come in the video room, Sharpie. Sure enough, he comes in. He'd be laughing that I was telling this story. I haven't told this story in the longest time. So he comes in, I set up the video for him. I was like, what do you call that, Sharpie? He's like, oh, my God, I didn't know. I didn't know.
Right, even recognize
it. I didn't know. I was like, Sharpie, man, you're in the NHL. Like, yeah, he was when he was in Chicago. And he goes, you know what? That's a bad habit from just after the shot on goal during a practice, skating to the back of the line and not staying engaged.
Right.
All right. So let's stay on that thought process because this is in the back of my head because you mentioned it earlier about letting goalies track pucks. So what can a goalie do? Like now I'm a goalie, right? I got to advocate for myself, for my knucklehead coach who is killing me right now. I'm getting shots from the corner, shots off the back of my leg. Guys are shooting and curling.
I know where you're going here, Mike, but it's a dead end. You can finish your question. I think I know where you're going, buddy.
So what do we do? So how are we going to that coach? Like how are we advocating for ourselves as goaltenders and going in and saying, listen, I need to have game because you just said it. Not only if I create practices that allow goalies to track and finish a play, then I start to create forwards that track and finish a play. And I think I advised I had a advisory practice I went to and the coach kept telling me my kids won't go drive to the net. They won't drive to the net and score, yelling and screaming. I'm listening. I'm watching game video, hours and hours, screaming and yelling, go to the net, go to the net. And I watch his practice, and every drill was shooting from the top of the circle and going to the line.
Right.
And I'm like, well, you have 20 weeks of teaching kids to just curl off. So if you want to be good at looping and shooting, like Dave Smith would say at RPI, right? If you want to be a great loop and shooter, then do a lot of loop and shoot drills. Right. And I think, so maybe is there anything a goalie can do or a goalie tandem can do to approach their coaches and talk about, how important it is to be in a game-like situation?
So Jim Schoenfeld is one of my greatest mentors. He has been so good to me in my years in hockey, going back to when he was our general manager with the Hartford Wolfpack in the AHL, really put his neck out to get me called up to the NHL to be with the Rangers. And he would laugh if I was telling this story. So he always came to me after practice. What kind of practice was it, Valley? He appreciated my feedback. So he had one drill where the guys would come out of the corner. They would come around the top of the circle, and he called it a 6-shooter. Shot, 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 shot. Go around the other circle. 6 more shots, right? And both ends would be going at the same time. Everyone's busy. Everybody's moving. And after practice, Shoney asked me, so Valley, any feedback on practice? I was like, yeah, Shoney, I got to be honest, man. I really don't like the 6-shooter. What do you mean you don't like the 6-shooter? I'm like, I don't like the 6-shooter because Shoney, I go down on the first one, and the next one's hitting me in the head. The next one's hitting me in the balls. Like, what am I doing? Like, I can't even make a save. I don't have time to get up. And he goes, all right, fine. And he skates away. Next day after practice, hey, Valley, how was practice today? Do you want some milk and cookies? Okay? Is the drills all right, Valley? And I was like, Shoney, that's not what I meant, Shoney, And he was just giving me the gears the rest of the year. And I'm like, I guess I didn't get through to him. But I think you have to look at it. Mike, how about this one? Look at it differently, right? So you're a goalie. You might be in a bad situation where you can't speak up. And guess what? 90% chance that's very likely the case. You oftentimes, am I going to John Tortorella and ask him to change the drill? No, I'm not. But what you can do, I'm going to give you my pickleball approach this morning, okay? guys into pickleball at all? Lee, Mike?
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
Okay. So I like it because when I'm in the kitchen, I'm like a goalie again. I'm moving around. I love it.
Yeah.
So we have a neighborhood where it's Laurel Beach. It's in Milford, Connecticut. It's 200 households of like old folks that have been here for ages. There's a lot of history here. We just had our 125th anniversary. It's a beach community. It's a lot of fun. We have 6 pickleball courts. We've got tennis courts, but we have a pickleball thread that like we're up every morning. I was on the pickleball court from 7 to 9 this morning, but the crowd this morning, I hope they're not watching. It was all older ladies. Right?
I hope they're
They
watching.
may be.
No,
This is
just-
a very
they may be.
You're not as spry as me, right? Spider-Man at the net. But what can I get out of that training? The old ladies, they're unreal at dinking. They're like dink masters. So you have to change your mindset. I remember when I was a goalie saying to myself, you know what? This practice isn't built for me, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to beat every pass. I'm going to set my feet. I'm going to be square no matter what happens. And if I get beat, it's not because I'm cheating. So you set a little bit of restriction with yourself. So for instance, when I'm playing with the ladies this morning, I'm not going out there to be a spike master. I'm going there to really work on my dink game. And I would say something to myself like, no unforced errors this game. No unforced errors, not happening. I'm going to have I'm going to set 2 bars for myself in this game. I'm going to work on my dinks, and I am not going to have any unforced errors. So you can do that as a goalie. I had to do it. You have to learn. If you want to be a professional athlete, not everything's for you. Okay. That's the way it is. Your environment might be really bad, but you have to find ways to get better, even under the worst conditions. I lived in Russia for 2 years. Do you want me to tell you about what that was like? We started the practice with 5-on-0s. Okay. So like, don't come crying to me. You don't like the coach's drill. I'm not getting better. Yeah. You've got to change your mindset. And that's another way that you can mentally get a lot tougher.
So, Steve, 2 things. One is I own a pickleball company, so you're going to get a free paddle.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. Yeah. So we're going to be
athletics, because that's what I'm using right now.
No, I'm gonna. It's 20 by 44 pickleball. I'm going to send you one just for fun. You don't have to switch or anything like that.
I am all in on pickleball, man. It's great.
We've got another show for that. We'll invite you on too.
All right.
The second thing you brought up and what you just said is not for the audience, not limited to goaltenders.
No,
I encourage everybody.
Life.
Players listening, parents listening. We talk about this on the show a lot, Mike. What can you take out of a good and positive or a negative situation? There's always something to be taken out of it.
You have a plan, though, right, Lee? Like you've got to talk to yourself before it begins. Go in there with a plan. Don't go in there winging it.
Right.
You know what 100%. You're going to have a plan.
Right. Every situation is an opportunity, even the bad ones. And I think you're right about flipping the mindset. Now, I wouldn't want to start a practice with a 5-on-0. I think that's a little bit much, but I'm sure you found something out of that, right?
Look, that's not even an exaggeration. Our coach was Sergei Nemchinov, won the 94 Cup with the Rangers. And he's a guy that's North American, played a ton over here. But he still went back to his roots when we were in Russia. I was playing for the Red Army. And you know what? Guess what I got out of that? Beat every pass. I could still beat the pass.
Right.
It might not be the most realistic thing, but guess what? I'm beating the pass. I'm going to set my feet. And I know that's going to carry over to my game. Yeah,
and you found a win. I just saw a KHL team wrestling a bear the other day. So they go pretty crazy over there.
A real one or a stuffed animal?
It looked pretty real to me. No, but I love where we're going with this, Steve, because it's so true. And again, so much of this applies to youth hockey, right? And the other follow-up I wanted to say is I always tell my players, let's discover the why behind the drill. We're doing a fundamental passing drill, but why are we doing this drill? And I ask them that. I'm a big believer, even at young ages, great questions demand great answers, right? If you just tell them to do the drill, they'll do it. But if they don't understand the why, they're just doing it. Now, when we explain the why, and I'm definitely going to borrow a lot of the stuff we said today, and they can apply to their mind to a game and it gets competitive, man, it changes the practice. Not only that, coaches listening, you got to understand this too. You will feel so much better after a practice that's competitive than if they just do the drills you're telling them to do. It's never about you, first off. But I remember yesterday, we just had a great practice, man. The feeling you get when you leave a great practice is like winning a game, right? And it's like you want to strive to create that every practice, and it's not always going to happen. You're definitely going to have some L's along the way. But if you strive for that, things will get better. And I love that, you have this data-driven approach. You have this creative approach. You have a mental fitness approach. You combine those 3 things together, you're going to get good practices most of the time.
Yeah. No, you're going to – hey, look, I love doing this because I started doing it in 2004, like I said earlier, because it happened to me. And what I meant by that was that I was struggling in the minors. Okay. And it's funny because last night I had a call with Calgary Flames goalie coach. Jason LaBarbera was my partner for the Hartford Wolfpack.
Right.
And the goalie coach I spoke to last night was Mackenzie Skapski, who was also played some games for the Rangers, Hartford Wolfpack. They're both goalie coaches now for the Calgary Flames. So what's kind of fascinating day to day with my life in hockey is that I talk to the highest level. I could be dragging a net on the ice at 6:30 in the morning. I could be on TV at 10 o'clock at night. Benoit Allaire, everybody I hope knows Benoit Allaire that watches and listens. He's the goalie coach that I'm referring to. When I was playing for Hartford in 2004, we had a strike. We had a lockout. Benoit Allaire did not have to be with us during that lockout. Under contract, he did not have to be in Hartford. He was a New York Ranger coach, but he chose to be with us, Jason LaBarbera and I, the entire lockout. 30 minutes before every practice, 45 minutes after every practice, LaBarbera and I got to work with Benoit Allaire. It's not a surprise to either of us that we both ended up in the NHL a year later.
Right.
Because we were both middling AHL, don't really get it type of guys. But I can tell you that year was serendipitous in a lot of ways. Number one, I had great coaching and I experienced it. And that's why I started a hockey camp that summer. My first year of hockey school and clinic coaching was 2004, 2005, that summer after that season. Number two, I hired a sports psychologist that year. I was 27 years old. I was stuck in the minors. I had to figure out how to get out of my own way. Hired a sports psychologist. That changed everything for me mentally. I was coming to the rink with a plan. I had a great attitude. I knew I was getting the coaching that I needed, so I had the player development side. I found a way not to get frustrated if it wasn't going well for me. I really found a second gear of my compete level. I found a way to get out of my way. If you don't figure that out, you're going to keep bumping your head up against the same obstacles. I think the next thing that happened that was really important to me was I started taking classes at school again. I was really engaged in my education. I was reading a lot. I was really getting into self-development. Right. But all of those things, and I would include this, Benoit Allaire gave me 10 VHS tapes of Sean Burke. And he said, big man, if you can learn how to play like this guy, you're going to play in the NHL. That's verbatim what he said to me when we were in Hartford. So what I did was I had to up my education, not just in the classroom, but I had to up my hockey IQ. And you know what I did? This was when Apple just started getting popular. I used to go to the West Farms Mall in Hartford. They had a Genius Bar. I was taking all of my lessons to learn how to convert a VHS into a DVD, which would then get into my computer so I could edit on Final Cut. So I spent hours at this. My roommate, Jeff Hamilton, who runs CJR, he used to be all over me, teasing me, going to the Genius Bar again, Valley? Like all over me. But I knew like I had to figure this out. So what did I do? I took these Sean Burke videos, and that was when he played for the old Phoenix Coyotes.
Yeah.
Allaire had coached him. And now, you know what I did? Okay, when the puck comes over the blue line, all right, that's when Berkey gets to his post. All right, that's when he shoulder checks. Okay, post to post there, got it. Depth. Oh, wow, he stays that deep there. Interesting. I wonder if I could pull that off. I'm going to try that tomorrow in practice. Guys, I stole Sean Burke's game and ended up in the NHL a year later. Like, but this is Sean Burke was, do you guys remember? He was a Pearson Award winner. He was a Vezina Trophy finalist. Like, yeah. He was killing it those years in Arizona. No, Phoenix, but Utah.
Not a bad guy to replicate, right? So I guess my question
is the point. Edit the game, get into it, and put it on your computer.
So think about how. So that one of my questions was going to be, just when you came into the NHL, I mean, it really was a, kind of this shift to the taller, bigger goaltender. Right. I mean, and all of a sudden now everybody, the size of a goaltender matters. And I think as far as a coach goes and a recruiter, they look for that first. Like, it's just an easy thing to say, oh, monster of a guy.
Well, hey, Mike, I would have liked that back when I was at the NHL draft. I was in the 8th round. Do you want to know why? I was too tall, Mike. There was a bias against my height. They said Valiquette has a 7-hole, not a 5-hole.
Can't move. Yeah, you couldn't move, right? I mean, too big a guy. So talk about, how, us as youth coaches can work with those goaltenders that look like they're big and lanky and like when they're young, like they're like, imagine, and you see it all the time, right? The difference between a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old and all of these different sizes. And really the hardest part for us is to evaluate that player when they're going through these crazy growth spurts, because, usually those players aren't maturing until, 18 and 19 years old, and their sizes, they're not done growing. So how do we work with those goaltenders and making sure that they can reach their potential when we see them at a very early age?
All right. So this will make sense. Okay. It'll make sense because I'm saying it.
Making sense now.
This should make sense, guys. All right. So we have goalies that are 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 that are small, but they're playing in the adult space. The hockey net is the same for an 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old as it is for an NHL goalie. That's why I don't start working with goalies myself until age 14, because it's the first time an adult-sized body has grown into the space, the hockey net. Now I'm teaching the goalies for the very first time how to receive the puck. Lee, your son's a goalie, and you said he's 10.
Yep.
So he's reaching for everything.
We talked about it.
Go to full extension. He's a little kid.
Yeah. In fact, and Steve, to tell you, I've had to tell him before, especially on some cross ice moves, he's like, but I made the right move. I said, yeah, but you're not 6 feet tall. So it's your leg is just not big enough. But I said, you did make the right play, but you have to understand that, buddy, that you're not the size you're going to be. Anyway, I'm with you on this.
You got it, right? So what I like to try and explain to goalies when I first start working with them at age 14 is that we have to learn how to receive the puck now. You have no idea how to track it. You've always reflex stopped it, or anticipation stopped it. You found ways to be athletic. Don't let go of those. You're still going to need them. They're a part of what we're baking into the pie here. But you must learn how to receive the puck, because now your biggest receiving surface is your upper body. And we have to find ways to develop the feet and movement skating wise for the young goalie, so that when they do have the adult sized body, they can still have the movement to get them there, because you need to achieve positioning. Positioning above all else stops the puck. You need that, because if you're not there, 100 shots out of 100 are going to end up in the back of the net. So how do you develop a young goalie? You must work on skating and positioning when they're young. The word tracking means when the puck is coming low blocker, my head is coming down to the puck. And if it's coming at my ear, my face actually, if the puck is face-off dots down towards the net, it's getting close. I need to keep my head silent here through the release and lift my shoulder up to make a save. You will learn those adult style moves when you get to adult size, but don't think you're going to be able to do it when you're 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You can't. You're not big enough. So that to me is it's the hard part. The second part that's hard is, you guys might laugh at me here, but I'm dead serious. It's keeping your eyes open. Okay. And I'm serious. This is very serious talk right now. I'm telling you right now, the biggest issue I have working with 14s and 15s is the shots hurt now. And a lot of them are flinching, a big time flinch before the puck has even been shot. Now, the way that I coach that out of these kids, you're going to laugh again maybe, but I take a iPad, I Velcro it to the ceiling in my office. I put a upper body on the kids with a helmet, lay them on a yoga mat, and I drop pucks on their face. And they have to keep their eyes open, because the flinching, it doesn't matter how good your technique is or how good your positioning is. If you flinch at all, you can't track.
Yeah.
Best goalies, I'm telling you right now, Strauss Mann, the first time I did this with him, I'm dropping the puck from the ceiling. His eyes are like, he looked like Charles Manson, And the weakest goalies are, you wouldn't believe it. You'd think I'm dropping an atom bomb on them. They're just all over the place. And it's really important that when you're teaching goalies to receive the puck, pay attention to their eyes. They have to make sure, you have to make sure as a coach, they're not shuttering their eyes.
So you're
down
telling
in Florida
me,
right now, Mike.
Are you telling me
down in Florida right now? Have you seen the lightning ads down in Florida?
No,
Because it's the background is all lightning, and it's only Vasilevsky's from the eyes up with his eyes super wide open.
Yeah.
I will send this to you, because now, did you just give us the answer to why goaltenders have their eyes kind of like this during games? When
Yeah, you have to. So Lee, I'll tell you what, the first two goalies I worked with at Quinnipiac, that was my first job out of hockey. Eric Hartzell, got him signed with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Michael Garteg got him signed with the Vancouver Canucks. I was thrilled. I was able to work with free agent goalies, guys that are already Division I, and I'm helping them get contracts. And that was cool. I did my first one in this office right here. Loved it. And got such a buzz off it. And I remember with Gartag, we were working on this one save, and this is an important save. Again, from the face-off dots in the zone down towards the net, you can't chase the shot that's coming at your ear with your catching glove because it actually just loses the race. You don't have enough time, especially when you get to the NHL. You play it at a high pace. College, same thing. Junior hockey, USHL, same thing. So I was explaining to Michael Gartag, who was older school, like lean away, make a save, to go at it. And I can't do this because I got these mic things over here. But well, actually, I'm going to explain something to you. You're going to like this, and I'll get back to the Gartag thing. So when I retired, I had one save that I wasn't 100% sure about how to coach. And that was the shot at the ear that I was just describing. So I'm working with a bunch of coaches. Nobody can really give me an answer if a low blocker save is going to be faster to be executed with the knee down on the ice or off the ice. I couldn't believe that I was asking questions like this after playing, but it was unbelievable to me what I didn't know about what I just did. But I was trying to figure it out. And I finally stumbled across a biomechanics coach. And I was driving over the Tappan Zee Bridge, and I'll never forget it. He calls and he said, nice to meet you, this and that. We get past the pleasantries, and he says, so what are your questions? And I was like, look, the shot at the ear, I remember playing my best and feeling like I get a piece with my shoulder and everything, but sometimes I'd go after it with my glove and I'd be late. I always felt like I got stuck on that one, especially from the slot. And he was like, okay, so we're talking about a shot that's, face-off dots or hash marks down. I was like, yeah. He said, okay, so put your back up against your chair. You're driving, right? And I was like, yeah. He said, look at the road ahead of you and try and get that elbow up and touch the roof of your car, touch the ceiling inside of your car. I was like, I can't. I get stuck at 90. I couldn't get it up. And he goes, now look down the hood and see the road coming underneath your vehicle. And now do it. And when you do it, your elbow goes all the way up. And he explained to me that it was the ligaments and the vertebrae in the neck. And it's much more science behind it than that. But that's how you can make that save. It's the only save that you don't want to track your head into the save. You want to keep it silent all the way through the release so that you can have that range on your, what we call a chicken wing save.
Yeah.
Now, you're not going to really, you could teach it to a 10-year-old. You won't use it as much because they're not big enough. And that's the point. So you're adding these elements, these wrinkles to making saves when they get bigger. Michael Gartag, now he can't get the save right. He's struggling. And we're in practice, and it's a couple weeks in. I'm like, guys, you got to get the save because I know you can get away with what you're doing right now at Quinnipiac, but you're not playing pro. I'm just telling you right now, we got to get this going. Now he was flinching the eyes a little bit, a little shy on the puck, didn't like it. So finally, he has this breakthrough, and he is just crunching these pucks. And I just almost dropped my mic. So he's making all these saves, and I said, Gartz, what did you say to yourself? He's like, don't be a wimp. Don't be a wimp.
So you're saying ripping black pucks over an 8-year-old's shoulder from the junior players isn't a good?
No, it's not good. It's not good. It is not good. Keep them at their own age group at that age. Trust me. Yeah, we don't want puck shy goalies when they're teenagers when it matters.
Right, right. Don't scare the crap out of them when they're 8.
Right.
maybe allowed in the track.
Won't be any goalies left, Mike.
No, yeah, well, that's okay. But we have plenty of goalies. Come on, no, but I mean, but those are the kind of things I think that like our audience, right, loves to hear just about the nuances of the game, because most of us as coaches of a team don't even have time to look at that. Like we don't have the time to say, hey, I'm going to design drills in my practice that are going to allow this player to kind of, get over the hump of being, not in a good technical spot. So again, other than, obviously watching video, watching themselves, how does a goaltender at that 14, let's just say 14 to 18, they don't have access to you. They don't have access to like a full-time goalie coach. What can they do with their own, resources, video and just technique to work on finding the things that aren't working in their game and improving them?
I would start with the hockey magazine In Goal. It's an online subscription, and it's got amazing pro reads. It's called In Goal Magazine, the podcast as well. It's hosted by Kevin Woodley. David Hutchinson is the co-host, and Darren Millard, who is the TV broadcaster for the Vegas Golden Knights. It's an amazing resource for becoming a student of the game. So that would be point number one. If you want to make it in this game, there is a lot of information out there for you, and encourage your athletes to become a student of the game.
Yeah.
My wife was a tennis player in college. My young guy's a tennis player, doesn't like hockey. My oldest guy is a flame-throwing pitcher. He loves baseball. I didn't make him play hockey. I tried with both of them, but they love what they love. And you will never stop playing the sport that you love. I loved hockey so much, so deeply, that even when the worst times came, I never quit. Why? Because it was my decision. It was my choice. My parents never made me play. My dad didn't play. My mom didn't play. But I love the game. So it's really important that you take that love for what you're doing and become a student of it. Because the more time you invest in it, the more confidence you gain, and then the less likely that you'll ever quit. Because if it's not your child's decision, when they face adversity for the first time, it might be 14, it might be 17, they will quit, because guess what? It wasn't their choice in the first place.
Yeah.
So that's number one. That would be my speech for rule number one: become a student of the game. You've got plenty of resources to do it. Number two, you need to understand what hard work is. And don't think just because you're having a workout out there and you're going up and down a few times and you come off with a sweat, that's a workout. Every kid, and I mean every kid that I've ever coached, doesn't know how to compete. And I didn't know this when I first started coaching, but you can teach compete. You can teach it. That's on you as a coach. You can teach compete. Do you want to know how I could teach compete? If my goalie doesn't go for it because his rebound off his blocker goes to the weak side of the ice, and maybe he doesn't think he has a chance to go get that puck, and he just waves his stick at it. You know, that one in practice, that one drives me bananas, okay? So on that first day, I'll say to the kid, hey, like I'll use a name, Mikey Roberts. He's playing at Dartmouth. Great kid. But he was, and Stephen Peck, University of Michigan, like the list is really long, I could say, of really elite goalies that once upon a time were a little soft when they were younger. But you have to call them out on that, and this is the way you do it. If he does that little stick waving thing, or doesn't freeze a puck that he should, doesn't follow the rebound full speed, or lets a puck in from the perimeter because he wasn't paying attention during practice, guess what that is? Down and back, red line back. There has to be a repercussion. If there isn't anything at stake, they're not going to do any learning. Those guys that I just met, they all did the down and backs. Didn't freeze a puck. We've got 3 moves after a save, guys. You either freeze it, full speed, that's a skill too, follow it on your feet, or slide over because it's a tight play. If you don't have one of those 3 responses, you just broke down the chain of command. And guess what? Down and back, red line. No, red line. And they learn. And now they're out there competing. And then that final 15 minutes that I talked about that's so important, it becomes the most valuable part of their week because you earn your confidence in practice.
Steve, I want to say too that I love what you just said, because I think there's a lot of coaches out there that fear that type of discipline. And I think that the truth is kids crave that type of discipline.
Lee, you just said it. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Crave it.
Crave it.
Right. Guess what? If you're not calling me to that, I don't even want you to be my coach.
Right.
You want to know why, Lee? Because I want to play college.
Right.
I want to play Division I. Hold me there. You know, and that's important. The kids should write emails before the season to their coach and say, guess what? I just want you to know, I might be 12 right now, but I want to play D1 one day.
Yeah. I love that.
And I want you to hold me to that standard. If I'm 5 minutes late for practice, I want my coach to come up to me and say, you know what? Mountain climber, Herbie, right there. You know, You're late. You want to play college, don't you? Well, I'm going to hold you to that standard. And that's something that really is what every athlete craves. Hockey players crave structure, right, Lee?
Yeah. They crave it.
Last thing I was going to say on my third point there before I forget and lose track here is you also have to understand, the athlete has to understand they can't get frustrated when they don't get it the first time.
Right.
Because development stops dead in its tracks if you get frustrated during your training. There's no room for it. It's like I'll say to my goalies, I had 4 16-year-olds that I started with this summer for the first time, didn't know them at all. And 3 of them really popped and 1 didn't. And the one guy that didn't pop, he just couldn't stop getting frustrated.
Right.
I'm like, look, you know, you're just stopping development right there. You might as well just, again, get off the ice, because am I going to sit here and watch you have a hissy fit for the next 20 minutes? Are you that spoiled? Nobody's ever told you no, or you get everything you want the first time? It's not how sports works. but that's how you also frame it with your kids. Go to the dry erase board and write, why do we play hockey, and put a circle around it, and then a tentacle off that. We learn inclusiveness. We learn respect. We learn punctuality. We learn, you could have the whole room engage in that conversation. I do it every summer with my guys because I want them to know that, guys, we're spitting out better people here, and like there's an education when you work with me, but yeah, like we're going to work hard. We're not going to get frustrated when we get challenged, and we're going to be coachable. And if you do those three things, you're going to leave a better person well after hockey. All of these things are why we play sports, why we play hockey.
Well, we always say on the show too, great people become great hockey players, and you've got to focus on both. And to your point, man, like, look, amazing things will start to happen if you coach competitiveness and you bring in discipline. The times I've done it, just this week, we were doing something where if you miss the net on a shot, we talked about shooting with a purpose. And if you miss the net, you just 3 push-ups, right? So they're all doing it. And they started coming up to me. The kids started coming up to me. It's like, I hit the post. Do I have to do it? Well, I missed it. I'm going to do them right now. Like, they're accountable. They're craving it. They're craving. And the other thing that we uncovered, Steve, is some of the kids were a little shy with their shot. And so we went up to them. They're just shooting low right in the middle of the net.
They're not going for it.
Right. And so we had this great conversation with them. And this is why I love how what you said uncovers these things. I said to them and the other coaches, I want you to shoot as hard as you can. And I want you to pick one of these corners or try and score. And if you miss, do the push-ups. Yeah. But I want you to try. It's not a punishment, right?
Put game pressure on yourself.
Right.
It can't feel foreign to you when you go to the game. It has to feel the same way your practice did. That's the easiest message you can have to a coach.
And I love, again, it applies to every player and every goalie and coaches. We got to say this too real quick, Steve. Like, the amount of times I'll have a coach come in, we're going to work on this today, then we never work on it again. And I say we should be looking at practices almost a month at a time. And it's okay to do the same drill 3, 4, 5 practices as long as there's progression. Like, you don't want it to be monotonous. But if you're working on a skill, man, work on the skill and make sure that they're working on it a few times a week. You can't just do passing once and the team's going to be great.
Those first 15 to 30 minutes, depending on the quality of the goalies that I'm working with, they'll sit here right now and tell you we're doing the same thing every day for those first 30 minutes.
Right.
You want to know why? How about me when I'm starting to work as a broadcaster and I see Henrik on the ice with Allaire, and I go out after for dinner and I was like, hey, Hank, you're doing the same. This is in 2018. I'm like, Hank, you're doing the same drills we did in 07. What are you doing? He's like, what do you mean, Valley? I'm like, don't you get kind of bored of them? He's like, no, you've got to become a master of the fundamentals.
Totally agree.
And I'm like, yeah, that's why Hank was great.
Yeah.
He did the same drills every day.
Listen to the same music every day.
Yeah.
Everything was the same.
So, what are we talking about? You don't have to add glitter and light shows to your drills. These kids need to understand the fundamentals are what gives you the confidence to play well and execute in a game. There's one book I read above all that really helped me put the framework of my business together. And the business meaning, like, let's put kids to Division I. That's the business I'm in. I just want everybody that I work with to go D1, and if for them it's D3. But I want kids to be like as high, just reach their potential. That's all.
Right.
And the Talent Code, it's written by Dan Coyle. If you haven't read it before, have you guys read it?
I have not. I'm going to now that you mention it.
No. And here's the thing, Lee. This book came out in 2009, and for the first time, I was still playing. For the first time, I really understood practice after I read this book, because it talked about what was happening to my brain. So your brain has neurocircuits in it that wrap with gray muscle matter, and that's called myelin. In myelin, the more you train something with focused intention, it wraps thicker around those neurocircuits so they fire quicker. So when you're doing something over and over again, low blocker, low blocker, low blocker, full intention, low blocker, follow my rebound, you're doing it over and over again, whether you realize it or not. Your brain now is moving on broadband where it was once dial-up. And now you're firing out there. So I understood from that point forward that I'm not just on the ice physically getting stronger, technically getting better, but I'm getting a mental response that goes from eyes to brain to hand. Like, and it's firing because of the level of intent in every single rep.
I love this, dude. And again, I like the words relentless pursuit for greatness, for competition, whatever, and It never stops. It never ends. And my last question for you, we have to ask this. You mentioned Henrik Lundqvist. You mentioned several really great goaltenders and athletes across the show. We'd be remiss if we didn't ask. You've seen a lot of these guys at the highest levels. What are some of the separators? What makes them great? What's the secret sauce that you see? We may have discussed it in the show already, but I wanted to ask it that way.
I have the answer for you in a story. When I retired, it was 2012, and that first summer, my best friend Steve Montador, who later passed away, rest in peace to Steve. He's my best friend since we were teenagers. He, with Andy O'Brien, was running a camp. It was 1 week before the NHL season began, and it was in Vail, Colorado. And Andy O'Brien is Sid Crosby's trainer. In this camp, it was every year they would have a draft the night before the camp. Okay. It was undercover. Nobody even knows this thing exists. Okay. So don't repeat this story. All right, guys. So the draft, we have Team Crosby versus Team Tavares at the time. We have Stamkos in the room, Patrick Kane. We have Nathan McKinnon. We have every star from every team in this camp, 16 guys, okay? 8 on each squad. And the goalies are Roberto Luongo and Jean-Sebastien Giguère, okay? Like I'm telling you, and I'm the goalie coach. And it's my first time. I don't deserve to be there because I'm the best goalie coach in the world. I just know the guy that started the camp. So I'm out there in the tracksuit, and it dawns on me in about a couple of minutes where I'm seeing the high level of these guys. And I'm like, oh my God, the stars have a different relationship with practice. It just came over me. And now we're doing this drill where it's, again, Giguère in the net, Luongo in the other net. It's on the circle, on the face-off circle. And they call it the Fox's Den, I think it was. Foxhole. So coach is like putting pucks in, and it's Tavares versus Crosby. And do you know what it was that I saw that day? It was the highest level of skill going up against the highest level of compete that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And although I played in the NHL and I saw it at the highest level, seeing stars on stars is another level I'd never seen before. And I was just taken back. And so I did that camp for 5 years because I got so much out of just being at dinner with them, going to lunch, telling stories, telling them about the Royal Road. You know, Sid was really cool. The second year, he took his glove off and shook my hand and said, "Hey, I didn't win the scoring championship without knowing that line existed."
Wow.
I had all these really cool interactions with these guys. And so I don't respect anybody more than I respect like Sidney Crosby, Henrik Lundqvist. Like, you should have seen Hank practice, you guys. Do you know what it's like with Hank practicing? Okay. The night before we play at Madison Square Garden, he gets first star. The next day we're on the ice at 10 o'clock at the training center. And after practice, because we've already been on the ice for 30 minutes, there was a night, the night before we played, after practice, Hank is taking breakaway after breakaway after breakaway. And here I am leaning up against the boards, taking a squirt of water, being like, "Hank, stop being such an a-hole. Just get off the ice, man. Like, I'm done. I'm tapped out right now." But he never stopped. And you have to get past the nice clothes and the hair and everything and realize that there was a badass under there. And nobody competed as hard as him. But the reason why the greats are great is, guess what? They compete harder than you. So learn how to compete, and you can if you hold yourself to that standard with the help of your coach.
Well, I'll say right now, I'm ready to run through a brick wall. I was inspired and motivational as hell. And I do want to say, for those of you listening to this and not watching this man behind him has Emmys and goalie helmets and you've been pretty relentless in your career too, both in the NHL and post-career. I mean, I've always enjoyed, watching obviously on the broadcast, but the way you speak, the way you bring the approach. I mean, you bring it every time you're on the air. And I love that about you, man. I can't thank you enough for being here today.
Guys, my pleasure. It's really fun talking hockey. We'll have to do it again.
Oh, we can do it again if you want. But for right now, that's going to do it for this episode of Our Kids Play Goalie. For Steve Valiquette, Mike Benelli, I'm Lee Elias. Remember, goaltenders, players, skaters, coaches, parents, whoever's listening, if you have a question, there's a little link accompanying this episode in the description. Tap it. You'll text right to us. We will get it. You can give us episode ideas. You can send over a message of, "I want to hear your thoughts on this," or you can email us, team@ourkidsplayhockey.com. But that's going to do it for this episode. We'll see you on the next one. Skate hard. Have fun. Enjoy your day, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.